Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Akanta Mantalakaram, Yaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Dakshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sadashiva Samarambam, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryandam, Vande Guru Parampara. Namaskaram. So we are seeing the glimpses of life from the great sages. If you recall, the quest for happiness in life is, as we understand, is quest for freedom, because happiness is free from worries, free from fear, free from disease. So we can always say, when you say your life goal is to attain happiness, you can say life goal is to attain freedom. So the freedom is needed because we are not free. And why are we not free? Because we are entrapped in the ajnana. Therefore, liberation means moving from ajnanam to jnana. Asadoma sadgamaya. So we need to move to the jnana. That's the reason we are fortunate to seek that jnanam from the Vedanta. So Vedantam is straight to the heart and to the mind and to the brain and tells you what is the truth. So we started understanding the paribhasha of Vedanta by studying Tattvabodha. And in the process of teaching this jnanam, Vedanta introduced many questions to us, because this jnanam is the knowledge of knowing the knowledge. It's comprehension of your comprehending capability. So it became very subtle, and it turned the question to, therefore, ask who you are. That's where it ended, because it said it is not who you think you are different. So it turned the problem around, and we said, this is interesting, but I'm not able to understand. I'm not able to focus. So the first, still in the intellectual pursuit, we look for our embodiment to be pure and capable. Then we said, okay, go and learn Yoga Shastra. So we went to Patanjali. And Patanjali, assuming that we have all the qualities, we're only looking for purifying the mind, for the Atma Jnanam, it started giving Vairagya, Abhyasa, Vairagya, Nirodha. We sailed through, learned, enticing our mind. But then we were doubtful about it because we are not able to control the mind. Then the compassionate Patanjali said, Ishvara Pranidhana. So when we saw that Patanjali Sutra, if you remember, two ways we can take it. One, Ishvara Pranidhanam is Ishvara presence, bhakti, as va. The va, the suffix can be and as well as are. It can be and because we must have bhakti to have abhyasa vairagyam. And if you take the extreme, I don't even need anything abhyasam vairagyam. I just go completely with God. That requires a very different approach. So then we said, okay, let us look at those sages who just proved purely by bhakti or bringing the importance to bhakti. Of course, we all know that bhakti is nothing different from jnanam. Jnanam and bhakti are not conflicting each other. But the true definition of bhakti itself is not known to us. So we saw Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who is the embodiment of bhakti and yoga and dhyana. We understood bhakti is absolute surrender, unassailable surrender, no need of shastra jnanam. Then we also had Swami Vivekananda, who had the intellectual pursuit. When the bhakti came in, his vain questions have been answered, and he saw all this is good to have personal emancipation, personal liberty, personal freedom. But he's such a Mahatma, he said, this is not my freedom that is important. The myness is not there anymore. I am an Advaita Anuphuti I have. Therefore, I must use this power of knowledge, power of bhakti to serve others, seva. Then Ramakrishna also told him before, seva is not out of compassion because you are bigger than the other people. Seva is Divya Darshanam of Swami, worship. So we saw these two Mahatmas. But you see, what happens is in life, every time the good knowledge gets eroded, something else comes in and it erodes it. Whenever it erodes, that's why Nishtha is advised. Why Lord Shiva is closing the eyes and Nishtha all the time. Narayana is lying down on this wonderful Ariyasanam, and what does he do? Meditate. Brahma is meditate. All the gods' idols, you look at it, they meditate. Why do they have to meditate? Because they show that even you attain the supreme knowledge, unless you get the Advaita Anuphuti and mix with this, you will fall down. So you keep on practicing it. So what happens is in the world, when we lose this kind of a momentum, then an amsa of the Parabrahma. Avatara means the Parabrahm's a small dose of grace takes embodiment and comes to the world. And they correct it. They correct that course correction. So that's why every avatar, it comes and makes some changes, what is needed for the time, and they disembody. Who do we call avatar? Avatar is one whose life you still think, practice, even though they don't exist. This is the better definition of avatar than having a Puranic view of thinking. If you're talking about Shankara, Ramanuja, Buddha, Jesus, and all these great lives, if you are talking now, they are avatars. Because when they are gone, embodiment is gone, their principle and goals are not gone. It still shines streets. So this was a time in 10th, 11th, 12th, especially in 13th century, in India, things got deteriorated. The cycle goes through, they are knowledgeable, the Brahminical values rise very high, karma becomes very high. Many sects were there. They didn't understand, even Shankara drove the Buddha's disciples' doctrine of nihilism to re-establish Jnana Margam. Then the Advaita was misunderstood. They become Mayavadis. They given up all this karmas, given up the bhakti. Then Ramanuja have to come and he has to really stand and even say, discard Advaita for a minute. Doesn't matter. Let's focus on a God. And subsequently, the sects started, Vaishnavam, Saivam, Jainam. They all forget the fundamental tenets of Vedanta. Sanskrit was a dominant force. The cream of the people understand things, they dictate the rules. Bhakti has no meaning. Bhakti become a cult. The many people have been spiritually impoverished. So again, therefore, you need an avatar to establish that the Dvaita Vedam should go away. So such an avatar set up a path, bhakti path, which is universal, which does not look at the caste, religion, sect, creed. It's called Nama Sankirtana. See, worshipping God by the name is more important than worshipping a God by the form. Why? We know as a Vedantic students, God is omnipresent, boundless. So when you have a bounded form, which is very important to have a form, but the form is needed for us to focus the mind, but the name to the form. Name is dimensionless. Of course, if you form a picture, I have a height, weight, depth. But I say Rama, Krishna, Shiva, where is the end of it? So Nama Sankirtanam is becoming important. And even today, if you look at the Nama Sankirtanam, the most important form of worship is Panduranga, the Vittala. This is very important heritage, this culture. The Parabrahman comes as Panduranga, Vittala. This Pandharpur, which is in the Maharashtra, even though historically it can trace back to a few centuries, but it has been there forever. All these great kshetras reoccur every time. I think in my limited knowledge, I think Bhagavad Bhada Shankara is the first one to really talk about, sing about Panduranga. In Panduranga Ashtam, he says, he even calls this place where Panduranga stays is Mahayoga Peetam. Mahayoga means what? Bhakti Yogam, Jnana Yogam, Karma Yogam, Raja Yogam. Everything is together, becomes a Mahayogam. And this form of Lord Krishna is a Parabrahma Swarupa. Shankara says, Parabrahma Lingam Bhaje Panduranga. See, even the temple there in Bandharpur, Swami stands like this, with his hands on his hip. It's a legend there. In Krishna's time, Pundalika is a very devotee who was worshipping Lord Krishna. And to show why Mata, Pita, Guru, Deva, why our parents are more important to show. Once Krishna comes to meet Pundalika, but Pundalika was worshipping, doing service to the father, massaging his father's leg. Father is about to sleep. And Lord Krishna comes there outside and says, I have come to see you. I have come to bless you. So Pundalika throws a stone, a brick. Okay, please stand on it for a while. Let me come to you. And he starts attending to his father again. And compassionate God with his hands on his hip and standing there. And this is how the statue is there in this. And this is also a very important tradition that started by Bhagavan after the Bhagavad Gita. People are not understanding it. And here, if you look at that, Swami has got on the Kridam is Shiva Lingam on this. In fact, Pandharpur is the only Vaishnavite temple in the whole world where Shivaratri Puja happens. They will start with the Om Namo Shivaya Namaha. They do the Vilvarchana. In Shivaratri, they do the Vilvarchana for Swami and then Tulsi Archana. So Vittal becomes the Krishna, the worshipper, and Shiva, the worshipped. So completely new culture, completely new path to bring in harmony among the religions, among the sect, creating a pure understanding of Advaita, and more importantly, remove all the sectoring, remove all the regional bias, caste bias. So in that tradition, to make this Pandharpur and Vittal as the Bhagavan, see the Pandurangan means, Pandu means white, but Vittal is black, Krishna, Shyamala. But what happens is, in that temple even today, Pandharpur, when they do this Aarti at the night, Only the priest will be there. Everybody will be out. He makes that dhupam and it becomes complete white smoke. Only he is allowed to see it. And then he closes the thing. The whole God becomes complete Nirguna Brahmam, Parabrahmam, Parashivam, Pandurangam. Morning he comes back, it's Vittala standing there. Come on, let's sing a song. Let's do Namasankirtanam. So we are going to see one great saint's life. Very little I know and very little I'll share. It's good enough to motivate that. Is Sant Jnaneshwar. Jnaneshwar, they call it Jnaneshwar, also called Sri Mauli. Mauli means mother, divine mother. So the avatara, Jnaneshwar is nothing but Jnanadev, he was called initially in the young days, is nothing but Bhagavan Krishna, the Vittal. So briefly the history, there was a very pious man called Govinda Pant Kulkarni. Kulkarni means a village chief who manages the village. So there is a village called Apagav. Ape is a village name. Gav means village in Maharashtra. The Ape Gav, in the Ape village, this divine person was living and they were childless. All the stories goes with this, but this is the hat. They pray, and once a saint comes, we will see who the saint is later. The saint comes and he gives him a vibhuti and says, take the vibhuti in water and drink it. Govindapad is a very, he's a Vaishnava, but they are worshipping Shiva as well. So the wife drinks the water, and on one fine day, they get a son. They name him Vittal Pant. Vithoba is their Kuladevada, so Vittal Pant was the name. Vittal Pant from the young age is introverted and very pious, very introverted. The parents teach him all the Shastras, Vedas, Veda Dhyanam, he does sing. Sanskrit was very prominent, and so he learns everything, but somehow his heart is not in family life. So he wants to go around. The renunciation becomes his inner urge. So he tells his parents that he wants to go around, look at the world. So he travels. He travels to every temple. And while going around, he comes to a place called Alandi. It's also called a Puranic name called Alankarapur. So the Alandi, he comes, and there was a small Anjaneya temple. So he's taking rest. It's a young man, a beautiful face, Tejas. So when he was taking rest in that village, there was a man called Siddhopant. Siddhopant is also a very pious man. He's also Kulkarni. He looks at this young man and he looks at him and says, he's so pious and beautiful, handsome, spiritually inclined. And he talks to him and offers his daughter, Rukmini Bai, in marriage. Of course, Vittal Pant is not interested in it. But then they take him to the parents and they discuss it, and eventually he agrees to marry. So Rukmini was married to Vittal Pant, and they are coming back to Ape village and they were living happily. But the happiness is only in the spiritual matters. Vittal Nath is not interested in earning life. He's not looking, he's not working, he's not making money, he's not bringing food to the family. So it is very difficult. So they continue to live like this for a while. Then Vittal Nath's parents die, and it becomes a lot more difficult for him. He has no one to help. He has no skills to sell. He all the time recites Vedas and sings songs. So his father-in-law took compassion and he comes home and take them back to their village in Alandi. But living in father-in-law's house is not a very proud moment for many people those days, even these days. So it is still hurting him more. And after some time, one day he goes to the river to take bath. Tell his wife, I go and have a bath. And he disappears. He said, this life is not for me. So his wife doesn't know, and he doesn't know. So he goes to Benares. And that is a place where all the saints come. And he was wandering around looking for somebody to guide him. And there was a very pious guru called Ramananda comes in. So he goes and falls on his feet. I found my guru, please give me a renunciation in life. You can't give a renunciation to anybody unless they are qualified and they have completed their obligations in life. So he asks him, so have you any dependence? And he says, I don't depend on anyone. There is no dependent for me. In a way, he might have told the truth in a Vedantic way. Nobody depends on anybody. But in a way, he lied. He did not tell the truth that there is a wife there. So Ramananda grants him the sannyasam. He's given a name Satchidananda or something. And then he's living there in Benares. Days passed, months passed, and one day Ramananda takes a vow to go to Rameshwar to do the Tirtha Yatra. So he was traveling down south. And on the way, he comes to this village where Rukmini Bai was living in Alandi. And when sadhus come, now sadhus are very divine people. Sadhus need to be worshipped. Sadhus needs to be treated well. These days, it is all going down. I think every time there is sadhu comes in because they come to, this is the guy I was telling you about who doesn't jump over the wall to see the glory for themselves, who jump back to this world, give knowledge. So this sadhu comes and everybody goes and worships him. Rukmini Bai goes and surrenders to him. And he says, Putra Bhakyam Tadastu. May you have wonderful children. And she cries, Swami, how can I? Then he was very shocked and he listens to a story. And the story correlates to one of the disciples that he met, that is Vittal Pant. Therefore, he feels very guilty because it is a sin he committed without inquiring, because you cannot take sannyasa unless your parents and your mother, your wife, if you have a wife, to give you permission to go. That's why Bhagavan Shankara has to play a leela of giving a crocodile and mothers to give a promise. You just cannot, I am renunciating, I got a Vedantic knowledge. You can't just throw away and go. It is not allowed. It is a sin. You have to take a permission. So he goes back he stops the pilgrimage. He said, what's the point of going to Rameshwar? I had done a papam. He goes to Benares and finds his disciple and tells him, no, go back to the Grihastha life. He says, no, how can I do? He said, no, it's a Guru Anai, Agnya. So when Guru says, you can't refuse it. So he takes it and comes back to the village and joins Rukmini Bai. And they're happy. But this is a taboo. You cannot come back. Those Brahmins, high caste leaders of the society who go by the Dharma. Dharma says, no, if you go to sannyasa ashram, you cannot come back. You take a vow. You have no more karmas to do. Even Bhagavad Pada's life and mother is died. Bhagavan comes back to see the mother and he wants to perform the final rites. And everybody objects to him because he's a sannyasi. He renunciated the mother. See, dharma is important, but dharma sukshma is there. In every dharma, there's dharma sukshma. You only have to read Mahabharata and, where the Bhagavan, in every action, what we see adharma, he shows the dharma sukshma there. So here, all these Brahmins don't understand. And they were saying, no, you cannot come back. And you come back here, now you are a Dushtan, you cannot Prashtan, you cannot be a Brahmin anymore. Don't come into the village. He scolded. This was a time when India was divided with such atrocious things in society. So So they were driven out to the woods. So they lived there and by eating in the fruits and the whatever little they could get. Sometimes he goes around Bhiksha and maybe some people may give him something to eat, but without knowing others, without others knowing it. So they live like this, and by God's grace, they get children. On 1273, the first son was born. They name him Nivritti. Naturally, Nivritti is giving away. He's a sannyasi. He has given up everything. So all his tabam he brings into us. Okay, Nivritti is my son's name. And the legend says Nivritti is nothing but Maha Brahman, Lord Shiva himself is born to them. Then in 2 years after that, in 1275, another son was born. It was given the name Jnanadev. Then another 2 years after, there was a son born. He was named Sopan Dev. Then there is a girl born after 2 years. They call her Muktabai. So Nivritti, Jnanadev, Sopan, and Muktabai. Their life and the legend make us realize they are Trimurtis, Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, and Mahashakti as Muktabai. The children are born and they still live a very impoverished life. Because children cannot be contained in school, the father teaches them. They are even learning Vedas at the young age. Sanskrit they learn. And they play to each other, in a secluded place in the woods. But Nivritti got 7 years of age and he needs to be given this Upanayana, a ritual that needs to be done. So they're feeling guilty. So at least they have, the villages have discarded me and my wife. But what my children do? So they will have compassion. Therefore, I go and ask them. So he goes to the village and asks everyone, please help us to do this Upanayana function for my son. They said, how dare you ask this? You can't even pronounce that word. You cannot do this. Go away, go away. He goes quite a few times. He said, no. You have to do prayaschitta. Prayaschitta karma is the karma you can do on only certain occasions, certain conditions. So he asked, okay, give me what is the prayaschitta karma? No, we don't want to tell you. Go away. So he comes back and he's very worried and sad. And Rukmini says, let us go and pray to Triambakeshwara, one of the Jyotirling. Today it's called Nashik. So let us go to there and worship the god. Then all the children and the parents go. They go, it's a path which is very difficult path. Even though if you drive there, it's a beautiful road going through the mountains. They go to Triambakeshwara on the way. That's the mountain where it's called Brahmagiri. That's where the Godavari starts. While they're going en route, one of the evenings, they're walking, right? It was thundery storm, rain. And when they're going, and there's a tiger comes, a huge ferocious tiger comes in front of them. So they were threatened. They run here and there. In this pandemonium, Nivritti lost his track. Nivritti goes away. So when they look around for Nivritti and the rain stops, tiger has gone, they could not find Nivritti. They searched the whole day, they couldn't find. Then they were worried and they just pray and then they come back to the village. The Nivritti who has gone, he was just wandering around and he finds a peak called Anjani Mountain. And he goes there and there is a cave. And inside the cave, he sees a light. He goes towards that. And the light is seen as a guru. He's called Gahini Maharshi. Gahini Nath is called. This Gahini Nath is the one who has given the Vibhuti for his grandfather. See, the Nath is a very important sect. The Gahini Nath is a direct disciple of Gorakshanath. The Gorakshanath, it comes through lineage of Matsyendranath. The Nath sect, even today, is a very pious sect. They bring harmony. For them, there is no Bedam. Shiva, Vishnu Bedam is not there. Vitalnath is their Devata. The legend is that, when Mahashakti Parvati was seeking for Jnanam, Parabrahman Shivam is telling them, Shobhades. Upadesham was going on. Shakti was listening to it, and she says, like that. And in that kind of thing, she gets into contemplation. Then there is still the keeps on coming, but there is slight change in the tone of that sound. So Shiva opens her eyes and looks and see her escort Parvati is in trance state. But where is this knowledge sound comes from them? Then he knows that this should be nothing but Mahavishnu. So Mahavishnu comes as a Matsya, as a fish. He was listening to Shiva. In fact, what Shiva was giving lecture to Parvati was Rama Nama Mahima. Sri Rama Ramedi, Rame Rame. So he was talking about that, Rama Mahima. Mahavishnu comes as a fish and listening to it. So Shiva, therefore, a Shivamsam, a spark of Shiva gets into the fish, and it carries this lineage of Shiva Kripa and Ramakrishna Nama. And this child that came out of the fish is called Matsyendra. Matsyendra Nath. So he embodies in this world, and he teaches the Sivajnanam, which is Ramakrishna Nama Hari. It's a Mahamantram. And that sect comes through. And they, of course, they take the Patanjali Yoga, they read Kundalini, they wear this Udraksham, they wear Namam, they wear the Jadamuti, they do Shivanamam, they do Ramakrishna. So when he comes, his lineage comes in, and one of this Shishya called Goraksha. Goraksha is also again another very great incarnation. For a devoted couple who was longing for a child, Chandra gives Vibhuti, and the lady takes the Vibhuti, but for somehow, maybe the neighbor or somebody told her something, this may be a magical one, it may make you a donkey or something, don't use it. So when Chandra is not there, and this lady puts it in the cow dung, because Vibhuti comes from the cow dung, because you can't throw the Vibhuti anywhere, it's anything, Vibhuti or this Nama, any such divine symbols, you cannot throw it away. So she puts on this cow dung, she forgets about it. Then after 12 years, Chandra comes back to the house, and she prostrates and says, "Oh, fine. Where is your son? She must be 12 years old. Call him there." And she panics and falls on the feet. "Swami, forgive me. I made a mistake. I did not do what you asked me to do. Ajnanam, doubt, Shraddha is not there. We don't have children anymore. We don't have a child." And Chandra was very compassionate. "No, go to the garden and call him." She goes there, and she is Ramakrishna Hari, and a young son comes out of this garden. He's called Goraksha. Gau means cow. Protection by the cow, Goraksha. Beautiful son comes in. And he prays to Maschendra, please offer this young couple, my parents, an opportunity to have a child. And then I want to do my avatar as importance to propagate this cult in this. So then they are endowed with a child, and the child really grows as a great Mahatma. So that's a Goraksha. So the Goraksha's direct disciple is this Gahini Maharshi, Gahini Nath. So Gahini Nath sees the Tejas in Nivritti. He makes him Nivritti Nath as his disciple to propagate this Parajnanam, Advaita Anubhuti, and to attain everybody this Nama Sangeetna Prakriti and the Sampradayam to him. You do that. So now Nivrittinath comes back to the village, and parents very happy. His father understands. You got it. You got a guru. I can see in your face. Now, having done this prayachittam of going to temple and all this, so he has got another desire to go back to the village and ask for one more time what the villagers can do. You see, they were trying to establish dharma. Even though this, see, what their view is that if a sannyasi comes back to family life, if this is accepted, then it becomes, normal things. There won't be any dharma. That's their view. But they forgot the individual merit of this person. So when he goes there and asks the villagers again, please allow me to be a Brahmin to do this. They said, no, you cannot do. Please give me a prayachittam. I went to the Swami's temple. I said, what Swami temple you go? The only prayachittam is pranatyagam. Oh, if I do pranatyagam, would my children become Brahmin? So the chief of the village a little bit taken back. I said pranatyagam, but is he going to really sacrifice his life? He said, no, I won't tell you. Pranatyagam. He goes away. So Vishwanath thinks in his mind, well, I think pranatyagam is what is needed. I will do pranatyagam. Comes home. His wife is asking what's happening, and he doesn't tell them. Dharmapatnis know what's in the mind. So in the night falls, children are sleeping. He walks away, and he walks, and go to Godavari. Some say it's Prayag, but look at the proximity. Maybe it's Godavari. He goes there, and he wants to fall into the river. He's about to fall. Somebody calls him, turns back. It is his wife, Rukmani. What are you doing here? Well, I came, I follow you. Let's go together. I said, how can you? If you're there, you can save. No. You are Vittal, I am Rukmani, namesake, but the real parents are Bhagavan. So let's not worry. So they both jump into the flooding Godavari and they attend Jal Samadhi. The children next day morning, young Muktabai gets up and she's looking for her mother and she couldn't find it. She was 4 years old. Nivrittinath and Jnanadev say, let's go and look for them. So they go around, look for the mother. They couldn't. The Nivrittinath sits down and thinks about it and he realizes that they have attained. So he tells Jnanadev that hereafter, Vittal and Rukmani are our parents. And then he imparts knowledge to Jnanadev. In other words, he invokes the true purpose of Jnanadev's. It's like a petrol, flame will come through. Jnanadev just picks up, he takes Nivrittinath as his guru, and he blossoms into a wonderful flower. So both brothers come to the little hut they had and tell the children, now we all have to sing Bhagavan's name. Jnanadev says, let's go and check with the villagers one more time. Okay. Then both of them go to the village. And they say, look, we want to have a reason for our parents' death. Their death cannot go waste. Tell us what we have to do. What is the reason? Now with the death of the parents and there is guilt in these families of these villages, they just shun them away. Even those compassionate mothers who used to give food in a back door, stop giving it because they're worried about these versions. And they come back, and Jnanadev was a little bit worried, and he goes into the hut and closes the room, little door. Muktabai, young child, goes and knocks on the door and says, Anna, come, please come. Why are you worried? If you worry for ourselves, who is going to worry for the whole world? It's Parashakti. Amba is giving that invocation to him. And Jnanadev comes out. This is it. The whole world is our house. Everybody is our relatives. We have to really propagate this good knowledge. See, they started moving. Nivrittinath says, let us go and tell the villages one more time. See, they fight for it because he does not want that parent's death to go unnoticed. They go. Then they say, the children looks very pitiable. They're desperate for it. And already the parents died and we become the cause of it. So they try to put the responsibility to somebody higher than them. They say, look, go to the place called Pradishta. It's called Python today. Go to the place. In Python, there's a Veda Sadas there. There are a lot of qualified scholars are there. You go to them and tell them about your nature. And they'll give you Shuddhi Patra, a certificate of purity. Yeah, funny. A purification certificate. You are eligible to be a Brahmin. Go and do it. Okay. If we do that, would you allow us to be? Yes. Okay. So they walk, children, they play to each other, they walk each other, talk to each other. Slowly they walk and reach the place. And the place they found a gentleman called Krishna. This Krishnan was the maternal uncle of Vittalnath. In fact, he was the one educated Vittalnath. She realizes who they are. They tell them this plight. He takes them inside the house. Oh, don't worry, we will talk to the scholars here. We'll tell them about it. In the meantime, this news spread in that village. Oh, Krishnapada has taken those people inside. Therefore, he must be also eliminated from this. And there's a Shraddham happening on the next day on Krishna's house. And for the Shraddha function, you need to have the priests have to come. Nobody wants to come. And Jnanadev says, don't worry, uncle, we will do Nama Sankirtan. I said, how can you do? It's a scriptural one. And then he gives Upanyasam and says, this will bring the Lord to come to your place. And they do that. So they realize that Jnanadev is a wonderful avatar. But still the village is not happy about this. So next day the Sadas happens. The children go, Krishnan goes there, and Nivrittinath and Jnanadev asked them the Shuddha Patrika and said, oh, what is this? You cannot be given that. You are impure. No, we are not. What is your name? He said, my name is Nivrittinath. What is Nivrittinath? Then he explains, what is Nivritti Marga? He quotes from Vedas, Upanishad. Therefore, I was given this name for this embodiment as Nivrittinath. Renunciation is the virtue that I follow. What is your name? He says, my name is Jnanadev. When there is Nivritti, if Nivritti is the virtue, Jnanam blossoms. My Guru is Nivrittinath. From him, the Jnanam blossoms. The Jnanam for the Kaivalya, Jnanam for the Moksha. They were astounded. Oh, the young child, he was only 7 years old. What is your name? My name is Shobhan. Sopan means steps. So when there is nivritti and the jnanam blossoms, I show the steps to righteous living. The whole world becomes a playground. I show the path. I show the dharma. Who are you? What is your name? Little girl says, I am Muktabai. Mukti, liberation. When there is nivritti, when there is jnanam, when there is dharma, dharmacharam, liberation is straight away. I give liberation. This is how the names are given. So you see, the children are giving them the profound insight of the Vedas at a young age. And these scholars are not happy. No. You still cannot do. They try to shut the door. And Navatina says, let us recite the Vedas. So all the four stands up. Om Hari Om Agni Mile Pohidam. They start. See, they're not even wearing the pune. Even the little girl also says, you see, the whole purpose of their avataram is, this is not somebody's own treasure. It is the universal asset, Vedas are. The practice of giving a caste color, gender color, but women cannot rule, all that is not correct. So all the four start saying, the Brahmins open the door. No, you cannot do. This is a sin. Can't do. They try to shut their mouth. So Muktabai says, what are you shutting the mouth for? This is the God saying it. It's not that only you can say. That time there's a buffalo going by. So even the buffalo can say Vedas. I said, what? Buffalo can say Vedas? They thought it's an insult to them. They got the buffalo to be brought near. Make the buffalo to say the Vedas. So Jnanadeva smiles and put the hands on the buffalo. Say Ramakrishna Hari, Jai Ramakrishna Hari. So wherever they left the Vedas, buffalo started reciting it. They are flabbergasted. They fell on their feet. Forgive me, forgive us. We made a mistake. We don't understand who you are. You are the Jnanaswarupam, or Parabrahman you are. But children, what they do? Can we get a Shuddhipatra? Said, no, we can't give you Shuddhipatra. What? We proved you. Yes, we cannot give because we are not qualified to give you. Before we could not give because we did not like you. Now we adore you, we revere you, but we are not qualified to give. Then they say, okay, they all go. The villagers follow them. The buffalo follows them. They just keep on traveling. And then that is the time the villagers call him, you are Jnaneshwar. So Jnanadev becomes Jnaneshwara. So Jnaneshwara goes and everybody follows. They reach a village called Ale. On the way, I think there is a story, it's an interesting one. On the way, he goes and then there's a lady comes and then he prays to Jnaneshwar and he says, Dirghasumangli Bhava. And she says, crying, no, my husband just died. I'm about to go into Sati. I want to fall into his fire. And then he calls him and the dead person comes up. And his name is Sachidanand. And they renunciate life and they follow as a Shishya. So his miracles growing on the way. This buffalo keep reciting the Vedas, it's coming along. And at a place called Ale, a village, the buffalo attained Samadhi. And Jnaneshwara put the buffalo in a Samadhi. And even today, I think it is worshipped. That's the time Nivrittinath, his guru, commands him to write Gita Pasha. So in the temple, he takes Guru's words, and then he started extempore, he started telling, but in Marathi, not in Sanskrit, in Marathi. The 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita, he gives in 9,000 verses. Beautiful examples, very simple examples. Everybody can understand examples. So Sachidananda writes everything. They sing songs. That time Nivrittinath also makes Jnaneshwar to Jnaneshwarnath into Natha sect. Then they are going back to Alandi village. Everybody follows. So he starts singing Abhangs, small songs, beautiful verses with Vedantic knowledge on it. Even today, in fact, this tradition called Varkari. Varkari's tradition is traveling from different places to go to Vittala in Bandapur, singing songs. No caste, everybody, man, woman, old, young, rich, poor, educated, not educated, Bhagavan Nama singing. Everybody sharing food. Shiva, Vishnu, all same. The tradition was started by him. That was the time, in fact, Namadev was 5 years senior in age to Jnaneshwar. Is also born. And in Bandapur, Namadev meets Jnaneshwar and they become so friendly. Namadev is a very different story. You know? He is a very stubborn devotion, prema bhakti, like Ramakrishna. You know, he challenges Krishna, eat my food, and Krishna will come and eat. He demands Krishna, things like that. And whereas Jnaneshwar is bringing Dvaita Anubhuti into Nama Sankirtanam, because he is none other than Vittal himself. But they become very friendly, and then it's the beauty of Jnaneshwar. Jnaneshwar wanted to really make Namadev's name to know everywhere. Then he says, look, let's go for Tirtha Yatra. He says, no, I will never leave Vittal. I will always, every day I need to see him. I cannot go. He's stubborn. He says, no, you must come. He goes and asks Vittal, what is this? How can I leave? Krishna says, no, you go. It's important. So reluctantly he takes him, but he takes him to Prayag, Kashi, Benares, Rajkot, Rameshwaram, Madurai, Kumbakonam. Everywhere they travel. The reason is he will say all these things, and then Namadev will sing Abhangs. People follow. So Jnaneshwar put himself as in the background, promoted him, and he was all over the place. And then finally, I think everything has to come to a glorious end, and the Sampradayam become very deep-rooted. Bandapur becomes, once again, become very famous. And he wants to attain salvation. He goes and asks his brother, Nivrittinath, this is his guru, and I would like to complete my life and get back. And he says, ask Vittala. So he goes and asks Panduranga. And he says, not here, go to Alandi. So he goes to Alandi. Namadev listens to all this. This is all a very esoteric communication. And Namadev complies to Panduranga. What are you trying to say? You're trying to allow him to depart this world, and you cannot do. It's very interesting. When this comes from the Namadev's Kirtanas and Abhangs, all this passion. So he comes back to Alandi, and he finds a place, very beautiful place, serene place, and say, this is where I want to do. Nivrittinath accepts. And one day, it's Krishna Bhaksha Ekadasi. So he goes down, and they do all that ritually what need to do. Before that, I think he also written Atman Bhava. Again, Nivrittinath has asked him to write 800 verses, beautiful verses of Advaita Anubhuti. So he goes down into the thing, and he, let's say, Ramakrishna Giri Bhajan. The rock was put in, closed. It's gone. Everybody cries. How can we leave? Cries, and Namadev cries. And in the Abhangi says he cries and cries and cries, and Vittala comes in front of him and try to console him, and he demands Vittala, you made a cruel thing, I want to see you. And then Jnaneshwara comes in, and shows his path. The other three children walk, and they walk away. And Sopanam, this Paramapada Sopanam, we play the game. There is also Jnanadev was invented. It says Sopanam is there. They were talking about all this and they're walking away. And there's one place called, within 2 months, a place called Swastvatam in Maharashtra. Sopanadev says to Anna, to Navritinath, I want to take a leave from you, allow me to pass. And he says, okay, and he take a samadhi there. Then Navritinath and Muktabai travel. They go to Triambakeshwara and then they walk through the Tapti river bank. And he already told all his disciples, everybody follows, wherever they go, they follow. Navritinath tells the disciples, please watch out for Muktabais, go around her and watch out. Because he was thinking something going to happen to her. And when they're walking, there's flooding and lightning and thunderstorm. They're walking Tapti river, singing songs. And one bright lightning, everybody closed their eyes for a second. The lightning is gone, Muktaba is gone. Prashakti, what can you do? She just disappears. And Navritinath spent some time singing, preaching, and then preaches Triambakeshwara temple. And then he attains Samadhi. Yeah, the one step is there. And if you go to the Triambakeshwara temple, there is a Sannidhi for Navritinath. It's all in 8 months of Jnanadeva's, Jnaneshwara's Mahasamadhi, all happened. Then the Jnaneshwari, this is what Jnaneshwar written about Bhagavad Gita. He called it Bhava Artha Deepika. Bhava Artha Deepika. Experienced meaning enlightenment. But people called it Jnaneshwari, the child of Jnaneshwara. But everything, people get changing things, So the Pandityam comes and they interfere with the Pakkum of Bhakti. And this is all Marathi language and colloquial, and people started changing it. And it's all forgotten. Even he was a little bit forgotten. But after 300 years came Eknath, another great saint. In his dream, he got this. See, I think what they say is that when Jnaneshwar was attaining Samadhi, he had a stick. Just a wooden pole, and he put the pole and then he went inside. And the pole became a tree, a vrisham. They don't know the name. A Jhana vrisham, they call it. Nameless tree is there, the Samadhi, even today. So this Eknath later had a dream that the tree's root is choking his throat or something. So he runs to the place and finds out this Samadhi. He is the one who brought it back. It was becoming a bush and a thing. And he takes away, and then, maybe he's also Jnaneshwara. So he goes inside the cave. And then he sees Jnaneshwara, the exactly same 21 years of age, where he went out into the Samadhi. Apparently, he got the Jnaneshwara recited back, and then he sits there and a few days and writes the whole thing back and writes the Mutra Patra. He writes a stamp on it. This is what, for me, Jnaneshwar Maharaj taught me, and nobody dares to modify it. And even today, that's what the version that is being sold, circulated, distributed. So that Guru Parampara, Jnana Parampara started the whole. See, what you can see in this sage's life, whatever you take it, he has transformed everything in one go. Like Bhagavan Shankara said, Mahayoga. Namasankirtanam is Mahayoga. Because, in the Kali Yuga, you cannot really do penance like the one foot or 100 years. Your life is kind of less than 100 years these days. You don't live. You can't do great yajna because nothing is pure. You can't follow the rituals correctly. Vedanta Jnanam is great, but our intellectual capacity is so limited. Bhakti, I do not know. Bhakti with rituals are confusing to me. Which God to pray, which God is bigger, which God is, sometimes even just because somebody is old doesn't mean everything that it was right. There are many mistakes done. And I heard about stories, even the 20th century, people would not, this is Shiva temple, they close their face because I'm a Veera Vaishnava. I will not look at it. Same way, Shiva's Veera Shaiva, I will not look at Shiva's name. How ridiculous. These Mahans has destroyed that unnecessary myth. Ekam Satyam, Parabrahma. You call it any names. Shaganam, you worship Brahma, Krishna, you worship any form you want. No problem. But when you want to elevate, let the form becomes a name. Name, Namasankirtan, therefore, is easy to sing, easy to contemplate. It will give you yoga. It will give you Patanjali's yoga jnana will come to you. Advaita jnana will come to you. Anubhuti will come to you. But when the Nama becomes more meditative, it becomes a pranavam, it becomes a om, then it becomes a maunam, and you become a true oneness with the God. One thing I wanted to say, when Nivrtinath asked, before the Jnaneshwar was compiled, Jnaneshwar asked Nivrtinath his pranams, and Nivrtinath asked, what do you want? Ask me something. He says, what can I ask? I have everything. No, you ask something. So Jnaneshwar asked Nivrtinath, there are 9 verses called Pasyadan in Marathi. Pasyadan means the Lokashema. I don't know all the 9. I think at least I know the 1 or 2. If you read that, it is like Sukhino Bhavantu. Everybody has to be happy. Atam Vishwatmake Devi Yaine Magyatni Toshive Toshoni Majadibye Pasyadanahi. Oh God, the entire cosmos divine, be pleased with this pious word offering of mine. Grant me the goodwill that is benign, for benevolent grace divine. So he says that. Then he says, may the evil-minded their wickedness shed. May the intellect turn into pious and good deeds instead. May all living beings find themselves bonded, be friendly ties of soul as comrades. You see, please do, if you have time, go and find out those 9, make it as your daily practice, prayers, because it is asking Lokachem. Let there not be any differences. Everybody can pray in any form they want to pray, and you be there and present to them. Om Asadoma Sadgamaya.
Om Asatoma Satgamaya.
Tamashoma Jyotirgamaya.
Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya.
Mrityoma Amridam Gamaya.
Mrityoma Amritangamaya.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Harihi Om Tatsat.